Here we are for a quick overview of the Roman house. A nice reconstruction of a Roman house not found in Pompeii right here. You can tell it's not found in Pompeii because it has this portico or stairway around it. As you can see, the color is very muted, plain, straightforward. You have the slanted roof, so the rain goes off the roof, as well as the high windows to allow light in and circulation of heat. Here you see the darkness of the house. You see the painted walls with the stucco, the mosaic, the atrium with the impluvium, and in the middle of the impluvium is this statuary. Perhaps they even had some plants there. While you look up and you see that great sense of space with the compluvium above. Here's a triclinium. Triclinium is found because you have these couches that they reclined on while eating, food being brought here in the center. Here you see the hortus. It's not a typical hortus because you don't see the peristylum around it. And then, of course, when you remove everything in the house, you're down to very small rooms throughout. The atrium here giving a great sense of space, and everything else pretty small. Let's take a look at the house as it stands. Most Romans did not live in the Roman house. They lived in these insulae. Insulae, basically tenement housing, a structure very similar to John Hay, where you have that open courtyard that will provide airflow, as well as small, teeny tiny apartments. The higher up, unlike today's age, cheaper the rent. Merchants at the bottom, and then, of course, apartments above, just like many places. As we look at the first part of the Roman house, it would be the Janua, the door. Were considered to be forbidding because you had to make sure that you kept out people who would want to rob you and steal from you and murder you. Yes, violence was definitely rife in ancient Rome. So there's the street, and as you can see, no lawn, just an opening right onto the sidewalk. Here's what the house could look like. You have the shuttered doors of the shop being closed. You have the doorway, very imposing, very straightforward, very boring. That's because all of the living in the house was focused around the center, the atrium, where you had the formal reception hall for the clients. You had also the hortus, or garden, with the peristylum, which is the walkway around it. So we've gone from the Janua and enter into the atrium. The atrium has in it the impluvium, that's the little pool of water, fed into it by the compluvium, this skylight right here. So when you look at the house, you see this sense of space, but also the main color. There's that lararium, the shrine to the household god. And as you can see in walking in, you have this very shallow water pool. Here you have the tablinum, which is the... And there's that reflecting pool right there with the light coming in from the compluvium. Here's the lararium, where you would make the sacrifice to the household gods. And then, of course, looking at a cubiculum, it looks very similar to our bedrooms, except it isn't. Notice the cold tile floor, the very narrow bed, and the wardrobe, because there were no closets. There are no windows either. Security and safety. Cubicula would necessarily be right off the main room. Very different than Greek houses where they had separate living quarters, especially for the women. Let's take a look at the tablinum. That's where Caecilius would do his studying, primarily go through his account books and meet with his clients in the morning. So in this position, he has a view of the hortus, where the family room was, and then the more formal reception hall of the atrium. He was and in charge. And there he is right there. Notice the walls painted with mosaic. Sometimes you'd have pictures of your family history. Maybe you'd have a rack of, if your family were former politicians, you'd have their funeral masks to be displayed to show people the grandeur. And here's Caecilius studying his books. Actually, they're not really books, it's more of a tablet or that we have right now. Wax covering a wood board. Some scrolls, perhaps, but those wouldn't be what you would write with. And that's really all you have to worry about for housing. You do need to know the various parts of the housing. The nice triclinium would be here for the dining room, the peristylum or the walkway, and then the hortus. All this is done for one reason. You can look. Let's take a look at some more. There are two parts of the Roman house. One is the interior, the other is the exterior, or the formal living space, and then the informal. This would be known as the hortus, and then, of course, the peristylum found in the. Here's a nice picture of the garden. Small. Many gardens were much larger, with the peristylum surrounding it. Peristylum is a walk-around area surrounded by columns, put over with a roof to avoid the sun. Here you see it again. Notice the shadows and the shade, kind of like an interior porch. This allowed the people in the family to gather away from the atrium, much like our family rooms. So here's a nice picture of the hortus. Next to it, the triclinium. And let's take a look at that. First off, the culina, the kitchen, the great stove you have, not an oven, but a stove, putting the wood underneath and letting the fire burn. And then, of course, the triclinium, or the dining hall. Notice it's called triclinium because there are three couches. It comes from the Greek form, where food would be brought in into the center table and people would just reach in with their hands. Always your right. So taking a look at it fully, you have here the mosaic on the floor. You have your atrium. You have your tablinum. You have your cubiculum. You have your latrina. We don't have a picture of that. We have your dining hall and your kitchen next to each other because the food would have to be run in quickly, hence the word course, from running in. They would run in with a little bit more food, then run in with more food, and run in from there. And here's a reconstruction of, is it the same house? I think it is not the same house. So, as you come in from the tablinum, you come into the hortus. You see the peristylum surrounding it. This is where all the family living would occur. A very nice triclinium. Look how much space there is here, along with the couches. So here you have the hortus in the middle on this house, much more normally designed. And that's the of our lecture on the Roman house. So if you put a substantive comment or a substantive question, you will get extra credit on this. This is what's known as an Easter egg for those students who are watching. I won't be announcing it. I'm just posting it.